What's going on, y'all, and welcome back to another Etheria restart video. I just got pinged like 5 times, so I knew something crazy was happening, and it is indeed insane. Liliam is actually getting a out of nowhere buff, so there's a reason I think this is happening so soon. We're going to go through all that, and then at the end I'll also talk about Liliam, what I think about her as the game has progressed, and show you some example builds if somehow you haven't already seen, because I think a lot of y'all need to pull her immediately. So let's go and just check this out together. I didn't read the full notes, but Neppy on the Discord, let's see here. Dear hyperlinkers at everybody. Flash update on August 8th, 3 a.m. So right now it is currently August 7th as of recording this. So if you guys watch this early, this will be happening in like, I don't know, 5 hours or something. Overnight probably for a lot of y'all. We'll be getting 100 Hydra Crystals for the maintenance, but based on data and player feedback following the release of the new Animus, we found that Liliam in-game performance has not met our design expectations. Stay tuned, guys. I have a lot of thoughts on this. After careful evaluation, we have decided to implement the following buffs and fixes for this Animus. Changeable full reflect, max level, and skill level 5. Take note of that. But first up, we have a skill 2. So skill 1 looks like it's going to be untouched, which is fine. Skill 1 is already okay as is. Skill 2, though, is going to get a 20% buff in terms of the multiplier, and then the final damage goes from 1 to 1.2. Now 1% is of course at max, but that is another 20% looks like increase. So quite a bit of damage. That's going to help you secure the kill on S2. And honestly, this thing, if you do full lattice this up, it does hit pretty hard. Can get you those secured kills, and then of course that lands an AoE stun. Flash Lightning, the skill 3, is going from 500 to 550, which is crazy. And we're not even done there yet either. It also looks like the Destroy is going to do now, instead of half of your total damage, you can do 100%. And I think that is obscene. I think now this is actually going to make Liliam much stronger in the Bruiser matchup. And I think she's going to go into that spot where you're probably going to be first picking her, because now she's good into bruisers. Now she's good into control units. And cleave and control players could already utilize her if they geared her and latticed her up. So I think she's going to now be in a position where, yeah, she's going to be one of the more contested characters in the game. When the target is a boss, increases final damage by 50%. Oh, wow. You know, I didn't even see that the first time around. She's also going to do more damage against PvE stuff too. 50% damage increase versus PvE as well. So Rengo, Nico Nana, wherever you guys might be running her. In fact, if you didn't watch my ultimate guide for Yelly, or sorry, not Yelly, for Liliam, I actually started using her in a Rengo lineup. So that's actually going to make that even faster. Sub 2 minutes, pretty consistent and safe clears. All right, sounds good. What else is here? Fix an issue where all at skills 1, 2, 3, 4, the final damage increase for every 1% HP the target loses was not calculated correctly. So apparently this was bugged. I wonder if that means it was underperforming. I did feel like the S2 sometimes did not feel like it was doing enough damage compared to like, you know, it had a higher multi than the S1, but I don't know. Anyways, at 1, 2, 3, 4, it looks like it wasn't quite working correctly in terms of the missing HP. Now, I do want to show you all something else, guys. This is probably in response. Where is it under here? Is it like the official news YouTube feed? They had like a let's see if I can find it for y'all real quick. You know what, guys, it's not super important, but they had a announcement or some kind of Twitter post where they had like Liliam on the tweet, and it was like Liliam kills everybody. And one of the video thumbnails was like, you know, forget all the haters. Liliam is actually doing insane damage. And I saw a lot of negative feedback from the Discord, from everywhere, pretty much, saying, you know, that this is very out of touch and that Liliam is not performing as, you know, as intended, or at least what they were saying she should. Now, here are where my thoughts come in, guys. I actually think as the game progresses, Liliam is already scary, and I actually think this buff is going to make her extremely strong. Now, the nice thing is that the buff for the PvE, the increased damage on both S2, S3, is going to make a lot of players that just want to use her more casually, they're gonna have a much better time running her in the PvE scenarios, running her maybe on a little bit lower lattice for some things, and still feel like she does decent damage. Now, the problem is, I think at the higher levels, once you start giving her some very good gear, once you start fully latticing her, she was already looking to be extremely strong, and now I feel like she's gonna be absurd. Like, I'm not even kidding, guys. I know the initial testing for a lot of builds felt off, but of course that also meant, you know, a lot of us didn't have full lattice yet. A lot of us were doing experimental builds, and I think right now the two main builds, which I'll talk about here in just a second, are for me, Gigabyte and Law, and I've been changing these constantly. But you know, I think a lot of different things can work for PvE. You could even run like White Fangs. I think people have been running Count successfully. Count can work for both PvE and PvP. I think now we're starting to see much better gear on her, as well as, you know, full lattices, perfect passives and things like that. So now she's actually doing a lot more damage than like the first few days she was released. And now that they're also going to increase her multipliers, make her injury or destroy HP even better, have her better for PvE, yeah, I think she's going to be very, very good. And I think most people now, if not everybody, should probably pick up this character. If you play PvP at all, I think you should pick her up. The only people that maybe don't need to is if you already have like Dating Yelly, you know, a different Apex character that you can fit into a lot of other areas. Because I still think even with the damage increase, I think Yelly is still going to be superior in most aspects, not even accounting for the fact that Liliam has no AoE. But yeah, I think in general, most players, if you play PvP at all, I think you need to pick up this character. Now that her destroy HP is even stronger, the fact that she's immune to turn meter and debuffs, or sorry, not debuffs, crowd control effects, is going to make her like a must-have in that department. And not must-have in overall for PvP, but a very high priority, I would say. So now after the buffs, I think it's safe enough for a lot of y'all to pull. Set aside some lattices, because she still needs a lot of lattices. She still needs some gear. So let's go and talk about it real quick. Let's first talk about the prowess real quick before I talk about the example builds. But actually, my mind has been shifting a bit. And I think it depends on how you guys are going to be playing her. But we're, of course, going to talk PvP mostly. For PvE, throw in whatever you want. Really. Doesn't matter too much. Probably S3, so she can cycle even faster with her own self attack up, self speed up with a reduced cooldown, and now this is gonna multiplier is gonna get even higher. But for PvP, I was actually starting with S1 to get the turn meter effect reduce. However, I think depending on your build, if you're gonna run around Bloodbath, which most like standard or bruiser players should run, otherwise, you know, you risk dying unless you can guarantee yourself go first. So Cleaver, control players, that aren't on Bloodbath, you can kind of do whatever you want. You'll have way higher damage, but anyone that kind of plays like me, that's more standard, more slower, that wants to play more of a bruiser, tank down style, that you're gonna need Bloodbath number 1, and 2, you're gonna want to make sure if she gets a turn, you do a lot of damage. You may not always be able to secure the kill, because one of Liliam's weaknesses is when she gets applied like attack break, since she doesn't have, you know, any cleanser unless you run Alicorn. Sometimes you just won't kill if your opponent is a little bit tanky, but a lot of times, yeah, I think the play is to actually max S3, as a lot of the turn meters minus effect units, besides like Marvel, I think a lot of times we can get through that depending on, you know, what else we bring in the squad. You do want to get this eventually, because getting turn meter reduced is very bad. However, I think more importantly, especially now that S3 is getting buffed here from 500 to 550, I would actually max S3, and a bonus thing is you get some speed on top of that too. So S3 I would say max first, S1 after that, and then S2 last but not least. And honestly, now that they're buffing this too, I'm going to max this one as well, just to see how much damage it pumps out. But otherwise, I think you could save if you want to skip on this last S2 and then just get the crit rate 8 plus 8% here. Now, if you guys want to talk dupes real fast, like now that she's buffed, man, the people that went 5 out of 5 are going to go insane. However, I can't be grabbing max copies of every LD Apex character. It's just too expensive. I'll slowly dupe her up if I continue to play this character. But I would say a nice little breakpoint is if you guys can get a few extra copies for extra 8 crit. That way you can start running different setups. Let's see here. This is my Gigabyte Strive build, I believe. But then you can start only running 1 crit module on the right side. And then you can even, if you have crit rate % here, you guys can see that we're situated pretty nicely. I even have a little bit too much crit, 2% overcapped. Now, if I show you all my other build, guys, I do think this build is also very good. The Law of Silence Liliam. I am overcapped on crit, so I would change out the crit passive, get some more crit damage. But yeah, I think either of these builds are great. I would just highly advise y'all to go Bloodbath if possible. And on Law of Silence, don't forget, you do have to force the Bloodbath, as it cannot naturally roll that enhancement. Just go for something like a Broken Set of Keen Eye for extra damage, and then Fury Edge is my 6th piece of choice. However, the fact that I'm overcapped on crit, if I wanted more speed, we could go Swift Raid too. A lot of times, it really depends. Just, I think one of the main important things is to make sure that Liliam has some damage so that she's threatening. Now that she does more damage on S3, we're more likely to kill those annoying units that really need to die, especially those crowd control units. Think of things like Obol, Kazio. We want to make sure we're killing them when we get a turn, because the rest of our units are probably getting stunned or slept or frozen, and then Liliam is our savior in trying to get us out of there. Additionally, in the bruiser matchup, now that we're going to be doing more injury, destroy HP, I should say, the extra damage in there is going to be welcome as well. So I think just make sure you always draft her with some support if you're playing real-time arena, summit arena, and go for bloodbath. Get anything else. I really like Strive, honestly, as a lot of times people will be hitting her. And then on top of the Gigabyte too, this just provides, this is my like cycling build. The passives are of course all offensive. And then I think for the Law of Silence, that's going to be a little bit more if you can ever extend the duration of the buffs on Law of Silence. Think of units like Ling. Doki Doki also has a lot of synergy with her. Unfortunately, I don't have that character, but Law of Silence can not only add damage, but also helps you survive and not get targeted. So think of units like Messiah, might help you survive a Messiah burst from the reduced damage. And on top of that, Yelly won't be able to snipe you out, right? She presses S3, however, she won't be able to target the Liliam, so that could help you survive early as well. I think it really depends. If you fight more like aggressive enemies, I would go Law of Silence, and then if you fight more bruisers, I would go for something like Gigabyte on Strive to get those, you know, plenty of turns. We're not super in danger of dying against other bruisers, and she'll really get a ton of value by taking a million turns. Anyways, guys, enjoy. Good luck on your Liliam pulls. I think now that she's getting buffed, she is probably very close to being a must-have for PvP. For PvE, I would still say she's not mandatory, but the increased damage is super welcome, and I'll test some more Rengo runs now that her damage is going to increase overnight. So thank you so much for watching. Tell me what you think about the buffs, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.